This one makes me a little bit nervous. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we are responding to SPRAGELS is Pokemon Unite dying. Now, here's the thing. Utmost respect for SPRAGELS. Love him. Have talked to him about these things, one-on-one. But I have my rebuttal. I respect that he's talking about it. I love that it's creating a dialogue. More and more exposure to even the topic is important. Let's dive into it, and we're going to listen to it and talk about what all is going on. So yeah.
Is Pokemon Unite a dead game? No. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
He's so funny, dude. All right, let's take a look at this and see what he's got to say.
Just kidding, but I want to give you my take on what I think is happening with Pokemon Unite, and my take might be worth as much as it costs to watch this video, which is absolutely nothing, but I'm gonna give it a go. If you have been on the internet and played Pokemon Unite, you may have heard people bandy about the idea that Pokemon Unite is dying, or it's a dead game, or they're not listening enough to their player base, so that means that the devs are this or that or the other, and some or all of this could be 100% true. All of this could also be 100% false. As with anything, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. But let me talk a little bit about the idea that Pokemon Unite is dead or that the player base is waning. Let's start with the fact that as far as we know...
All right. He's going to start jumping into specific topics, and I got to get something off my chest. And this is where this particular discussion gets really weird. Everything about talking about the game dying, it's always subjective. It is always subjective. There's never really great concrete evidence, and he's going to talk about that. But the biggest thing is that you have to understand what anyone, not anyone the collective, but any one person means when they say the game is dead or dying. Now, I will always give you my definition because I'm a big person that talks on this. I do think that the game is specifically dying, and I will give you the exact definition to what that means for me, but I don't know what it means for SPRAGELS. I don't know what it means for you. I don't know what it means for anybody else. To me, a game is dying when the player base does start to fall off, which, again, anecdotes, we're going to have to talk about that here in a second, when players are unhappy, when there is a lack of progress being made from the developers in terms of things that have been being asked for, player feedback that has been long running, whenever the game is becoming less fun to play for more than just a handful of people, whenever the vocal minority of people start to talk about these issues more and more and more, whenever the perceptional, whenever the community's perception of the game's health shifts and you can see it. And we're starting to see that. I made a video about that not too long ago. We are starting to see more and more and more people bringing this up. We are starting, and it's not me. I didn't go out of my way and convince everybody that the game is dying. I don't have that kind of pull, although people think I do. When players are unhappy, they speak. When competitive players are unhappy, they speak. When people don't want to play the game anymore, they leave. You know, and these are things that are starting to happen. We are seeing it happen. We're watching the Reddit posts. We're seeing the people in the comments section. We're seeing them posting under the tweets for Pokemon Unite. So what does it mean for a game to be dead or dying? It really depends for you. There is a literal definition of dead where the game is shut down. You cannot play it. I'm talking old games I played in the past. Infinite Crisis. Go look it up. You can't play it. It's gone. It's dead. But for a game to be dying, that's where it gets a lot more subjective in terms of what does it mean for you to be dying? Are you having less fun with it? Are people actually quitting? Or, what is the community's perception of the game? In that way, I think the game is absolutely dying. I think that we are getting ignored by the developers. I think that they do not communicate with us. I think that they have not made any positive changes in terms of changing ranked or making the game more grindy, more like accessible to being played consistently and to wanting to log on and having reasons to play the game. They're not making any changes in that regard. And yeah, we get some patches and things, and some character releases, but this is a free-to-play game. They have to do that. So let's continue.
We have no actual information that shows that the player base is getting smaller. It very well could be, and in fact, the way I would imagine the game's player base goes is, of course...
He's going to go through a scenario here. So here's the truth. We don't have player numbers. They're not going to give us that. He's going to talk about the Samsung stuff in a bit, so you'll hear that if you haven't seen this already. But no, you don't know. We don't know that the player base is dwindling. We don't know. But, and this is the anecdotes, the subjectivity of the entire thing, you can kind of feel it. You can see that queues are longer. You can see that the world ranking in terms of Masters is lower or has felt lower. You can see that there's more community outcry. You can see that more people are voicing that they're quitting the game, that they're not happy. You can feel the sentiment from competitive players. Oh, 5-stack teams aren't playing as much, or everybody's just waiting because it's like a dead off season, waiting for the next season of Unite Championship Series, and maybe that is what it is. But it's not just as simple as saying like, oh well, we don't have player numbers, so therefore it's not true. It's not really that simple. It's a lot more about how many more bot games are we getting? Why did they change bot game like AI? Why did they change the AI? Why didn't we get communication on that? Why are bot matches back in Masters? What is happening? You know what I mean? And so a lack of information is not evidence per se, but it does make you wonder, and that leads to that perceptional shift where the community starts to go, well, what's going on here? And then it makes them question, it makes them unhappy, and then again they start quitting, or they don't like the game, they start talking about it, the perception changes, people start thinking the game is dying, they feel that the game is dying, it feels like the game's not in a healthy position, therefore a game kind of in a sense for individual people, if it's the way that you feel, is dying. And that's the way that I feel. So
launch, which is a huge thing, and then mobile launch, which is even bigger. They get a massive install base, tons of people checking out a free-to-play game, and then a lot of people finding out that MOBAs are hard, free-to-play games aren't for them, and then they drop off. And then since then, they have a consistent group of players checking out this game. Is it going up or down? I don't know. No one has told us. The only thing I ever heard from Pokemon is that around the World Championships, there were a ton of downloads for the game because a lot of people apparently hadn't heard about it, and when they saw the broadcast they were excited. Again,
okay, so this touches a lot more on, this doesn't really hit for me in terms of talking about like active player base, more so the engagement of getting people on the game. So we have that big 70 million downloads number, right, or 100 million downloads, whatever it is, and the reality is that number doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all in terms of talking about the health of the game if the game is not retaining those players. So yeah, to say, oh, when the game released, huge surge in players, absolutely. Mobile release, huge surge in players, lull periods, no patches, in between seasons, end of seasons, player base goes down. Oh, when Worlds happened, big surge of players because people were finding out about the game. Absolutely agree with all that, but I think that is all completely irrelevant to the discussion about how healthy the game feels when it comes to current player retention. And the reality is, it's true. We don't have numbers. I have no idea if we have 100,000 people playing, less, or 500,000 people playing, active daily users. We don't know. And they don't report those numbers. They report downloads, because saying you have 70 million downloads sounds awesome. Well, guess what? I'm like 3 of those downloads. I've downloaded the game on like 2 Switches and a cell phone. You know what I mean? So it's like those numbers don't really mean anything. And it doesn't, I can't use this talking point to say that the game is dying, but it's pretty irrelevant, I think, to talk about, the big surges and the falls of the player base in regards to like downloads and people checking out the game.
That's just something I was told. I have no information backing that up. And the only statistics I've seen on players inside the game come from some Android numbers that show some revenue and some player base. And what it looks like is the player base is pretty dang consistent, and when new content drops, it spikes, and then there's a lull until new content drops and it spikes, and then there's a lull, and it goes in little waves like this.
That's to be expected.
All the information I have seen. If there's other information out there, I would love to hear about it. So that's first what we know about the player base in Pokemon Unite. Now, as far as we can tell, at least when it comes to updates inside the game, they've been fairly consistent with updates and releasing Pokemon since the game has launched. That hasn't seemed to slow down. It wasn't like they went from 2 or 3 Pokemon in the span of about a month and a half or 2 months, and now all of a sudden it's 1 Pokemon every 2 months or something, no more events or anything like that. It seems to be that the game is continued to be supported by the developers about the same way it has been since launch.
So there I have a problem with. Consistent, just for the sake of saying, consistent support from the developers in terms of what they're doing consistently on a time schedule does not necessarily mean good. It can be consistent, and he's right. We absolutely do get consistent releases. We're getting like 2-3 Pokemon a month, which is crazy. The character release schedule for this game is amazing. But I would say that the support that we've seen from the developers has definitely not been consistent to me. In the early days, we got much faster patches, it felt like, and I'm talking really early on, and I can't even really remember the patches. We had a hotfix for Sylveon. They almost never do anything like that anymore. We had 2 dev letters in the past, if I remember correctly, maybe 3. So the support that we've seen from the developers, in my opinion, has absolutely plummeted. It's not necessarily, I say plummeted, that's a pretty aggressive word. It's absolutely diminished, deteriorated, decreased. I'm not really sure what word I want to use here, but it absolutely does not feel as good as it used to, or near. And just because it's been consistent, even if it was consistent, that doesn't necessarily make it good. We played with Mr. Mime and Mew broken for like 2 months straight. We had Absol broken for like a month straight. I think that even if it was consistent, that doesn't make it good. And whenever you have something that's not good, this is going to lean back into that conversation of, does it change the perception of the community and how they feel? It absolutely does. People are tired of these long drought periods of feeling like we have to deal with Mew and Mime being broken for 2 months. That burns players out. It makes them have less faith in the developers. It makes them have less fun in the game. It makes them engage and log onto the game less. So no, I don't agree with this per se. I think that it absolutely has gotten worse over time. I think that it is absolutely over time, even if it was consistent, if it wasn't good, it's going to have a negative impact on the community in terms of how they feel about it. Why, someone eventually, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 months down the line is going to look and be like, why am I still playing this? They don't update the game fast enough. Why am I still playing this? Yeah, a new character came out, but it's got, there's issues behind gem locking, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Why am I still playing this? The developers don't communicate with us. Why am I still playing this? They take 2 months to nerf something or to buff something. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of my take on it right now.
With little updates here and there, balance changes, new Pokemon coming to the game, and then larger events throughout the year. We also don't know this for a fact, and anything can change, but it looks like there's going to be another season of the Pokemon Unite World Championships starting up at the start of the year. 99%
basically confirmed.
Official has been said, except that the official Twitters have talked about next year's championships, but all that doesn't have a concrete date or anything like that.
Yeah,
I'm going to posit my theory as to why I think a lot of people might say that the game is dying, and that is because the communication around the game is often quite poor. It looks like the game goes through multiple channels, and the most important one putting out communication is their Japanese channel. Everything else seems to take a far back seat to that, and you really don't get any other information. I think this has to do with a lot of things, with multiple companies working on this game going through a Chinese developer, then to Japan, then through TCPI internationally, and then out to a bunch of regions. I mean, this is a massive game that is worldwide, and I think communication-wise, they really are behind the ball with this game. And
okay, absolutely agree. I agree with the statement and the sentiment of like they are very behind on communication. I don't agree that the reason why I feel the game is dying is because of communication. That's just simply one point. In my opinion, again, the game is dying because they don't communicate with us, because they're not fixing issues. They're not really listening to player feedback, and if they are, they're not implementing those changes and using that feedback in a timely fashion. They are completely disrespecting their free-to-play community with gem locking. They're completely disrespecting their English community, or pretty much any community that's not Japanese, by holding the information and not posting that in a timely fashion. And when it comes to communication specifically, if we're talking about getting our information from the Japanese social channels, I get it. Like they're, that's where they mainly operate, I guess, is from the Japanese side of things. But we are talking about a $92 billion company. You take $60,000. I don't know if that's an accurate wage to give or salary to give. Hire someone for each country / language that you operate in. Figure it out. I need to tie this particular thing when it comes to talking about money into a point I'm going to make a little bit later on, but figure it out. I don't, as a player in the free-to-play market, and this is a big thing to understand about the free-to-play market in terms of being a consumer, there's way too many other games for me to be fucking around on Pokemon Unite if they're not going to respect me. Way too many other games. I can go play League, I can go play Dota, I can play TFT, I can play Overwatch 2, I can play Fortnite, I can play Apex Legends. Like, there's way too many other games for you to be dropping the ball and not respecting me by giving me some patch notes in English, which, by the way, as of this date, I'm going to go double check to be sure, we never got English patch notes on the English Twitter. Just saying, like, it just never happened. It didn't happen. It happened in the game, and cool, you know, you can open up the game client and see the patch notes, but why do I not deserve patch notes in English? And why do you deserve my time or my money if you can't do something as simple as communicate? I'm sorry, I don't know. Big thing there.
I think that's one of the most frustrating things for players.
I agree.
With no communication, I'm sure that a lot of players are feeling like, what am I sticking around this game for? Am I going to be competing again, especially at the pro level? Are there going to be more Pokemon releases? What does the rest of the year look like? What does next year look like? Are there plans for this game? And I think that probably is quite frustrating for people.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get a roadmap every now and then.
Not only with Pokemon Unite, but many free-to-play games are going through some really interesting monetization choices. Interesting is another way of saying maybe not so great. Recently in Pokemon Unite, we had Zoroark come to the game. It was gem locked, which a few recent Pokemon have been gem locked for the first week. It can be purchased after the first week, not for gems. It's gem locked for the first week, and you must buy it with the Hollowware. That is the only.
Okay, so I can't really speak about other mobile games. I don't really play other mobile games and their monetization and the changes that are happening there. Apple Store, whatever, making the gems more expensive, whatever. I don't really know anything about that. What I can say is that you have a free-to-play game that allows... This is very, very simple. Very, very simple. You have a free-to-play game that allows the new character to be played and ranked, but the new character is gem-locked behind a paywall for money only for 1 week. That's pay to win. I'm sorry. There's no other way to look at it. The character could be dog shit F tier. It's pay to win. If the character is good, it's instantly pay to win. So having the opportunity for the character to be good on release to be then used in ranked for a week for a paywall money purchase only is pay to win. It's disrespect. It's bad business practice. It's bad for balance. It's bad for ranked. It's disrespectful to the free to play community who don't earn enough gold to make a decision or who don't earn enough gold to buy every Pokemon for free anyways. So give power to the player to make the decisions that they want to make with the currency that they've earned with their time. This is a very big part of talking about free-to-play games and talking about gaming in terms of consumer to developer that I love to bring up because I think that this is very, very, very important. Human beings, you are a human, I'm a human. Our most valuable commodity is our time. Not our money, it's our time. It's the one thing that you're spending right now that you can't get back. It is the most valuable thing that we have. To say that your time isn't enough to buy Zoroark or you have to wait is simply disrespectful. And that's the side point to it being bad for ranked games and bad for balance because it could potentially be pay to win or is just pay to win. It's just a pay to win practice even if the character sucks. It doesn't matter. It's bad. It's a bad thing. It's one of those things that every single person that plays Pokemon Unite needs to stand up against and say, hey, fuck this. I'm not doing it. Like I absolutely do not agree with this business practice. This is for a lot of people the final straw, you know, the nail in the coffin, the reason to finally start criticizing the game. And I think we absolutely should, on top of the fact that they haven't fixed anything else, on top of the fact that they stopped communicating, on top of the fact that they balance too slowly, on top of the fact, you get my point.
Only way to unlock it. So clearly they are milking their whales, which is something I believe you actually could do to a whale if you were brave enough. I'm not going to sit here in this video and defend monetization practices and things like that. I have a lot of different thoughts on how I would like to,
which he's definitely spoken out against, by the way.
I also don't know the truth behind the scenes as to what it costs
this is
to
important.
make this game, how much money they need to make on a monthly, weekly, whatever basis to keep a game like this running and to keep a team employed and behind.
So he says, I don't know how much it costs to keep this game running. I don't know how much it costs, how much money they need to make to keep the team employed. I think that the important thing here, and again, this is talking about the free-to-play like player base, is that I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care how much it costs to keep the game running. I don't care how much it costs for them to feel comfortable with their profit margins. I don't care how much it costs to pay their developers. I don't care. The only thing I care about is having a good experience when I play the game, and I don't. And that could sound really, really egotistical and self-centered, but I think that that's an important thing to recognize because, again, the free-to-play market in terms of, you know, consumer to developer is incredibly cutthroat. There's way too many options. I have 24 hours in a day. 8 of that is spent sleeping. For most people, 8 of that is spent working. What's the average person probably putting in a few hours a night, maybe at max? I mean, you know, I still have a lot more time to spend, but you can just simply play something that's better for your time. So I don't care. I don't care what it costs. It's not my problem. That's their job, and I'm not here to offer them monetization solutions. Now, I could definitely offer ideas on things, but that's not my job. My job is to say, hey, look, I'm a player, I'm a consumer, I don't like this, and that's what I do. So, just a thought
behind it. I truly have no idea, so I won't even begin to say that I have the best monetization strategy in place in my head.
I don't.
Let me just say this about everything before I continue. When someone tells you that the game is dying or this or that, just understand that they have no idea what they're talking about in the slightest. Just like me, they're simply guessing based on, I don't know, however they're feeling, maybe some sentiment they see around the player base, things like that. They have no idea what's happening with this game.
Pause. No. No. Not true. When I talk about whether or not the game is dying, I have to, again, specifically point out that you have to define what that means, because that could mean different things for every person. It's not just the sentiment in the community, although that is a big part of it. How we feel about the game. Are we having fun with the game? But these are all big pieces, considering that you need players having fun and feeling confident in the developers and feeling respected by the developers in order to have a game that is performing well enough to consider not dying. But the reason why I'm so confident that the game is dying is because I have come from other games that have died. Now, this is an anecdotes about my experiences in the past, but we as human beings form our opinions based on our experiences in our life. You know, if you touch a stove, you know it's hot. You know that now, right? You can sense that. You understand that kind of an interaction. I've seen games die before. I've come from MOBAs that have died before. I've come from other genres that have died before. This is what it feels like. It feels like the game doesn't improve. It feels like the developers don't talk to you. It feels like the community starts to shift in their perception of the developers and the way that they feel respected or not respected. It feels like the game is less fun to play. I'm so confident that the game, in my definition, is dying because I've died with another game before. You know what I mean? Like, I've gone through it with another game before. So again, no one can literally say the game is dying because there's too many definitions of what that means. But to the definition of player perception is shifting, players are feeling more disrespected than ever, players are losing confidence in the developers, players are playing less. These are all things that are happening. Now, to that last one, players are playing less. I can't tell you how much, but I can tell you it's happening because people tell me all the time. I get comments, you see it on Reddit, you see it on Twitter, etc., etc. The perception shifted. The game is dying. I'm confident.
They don't. And like I said, that goes for me too. Now, let me give you my theory as to what is going on with Pokemon Unite.
Big theory coming up.
It might not make sense to you, but I think it makes a lot of sense.
Big theories coming up.
The Pokemon company is massive. They make an insane amount of money. They are the highest grossing IP of all time. That's right. They even beat out the MASH series.
I don't understand this reference.
Most people won't get, and those who do will think, why did he make that reference? Couldn't he have said Harry Potter? Pokemon
I don't get it.
Have a game like Pokemon Unite around for 10 years and it make no money and they would not care at all. Now that would...
I think this is a really important point because he's basically saying that Pokemon has so much money that they could literally make this game, let it die, and they could do it again every single year and it wouldn't matter. They can release like one plushie and probably make more money than Unite makes. So I agree, like, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because that means that they have infinite finances to be able to pump into this game and make it as amazing as they could, but it also means that they may just not, they may look at Unite and be like, it's not really grossing enough, pump up the monetization, let the player base, rise or fall, whatever. They may literally have gone to Tencent and Timmy and said, hey, crank that monetization up, milk it for what it's worth. If the game dies, whatever, it doesn't matter. If the game keeps going well, cool, keep milking it forever. We don't give a shit. They may literally be saying, hey, you have all these player metrics, all these numbers about what the player activity is. We don't care. Crank up the monetization. Let's see what happens. And the reality is, dude, $92 billion company. Like, it's, dude, I don't even care what happens because it's a game. They're run by a $92 billion company. You know what I mean? Like I know that doesn't make any sense, but $92 billion. They have infinite money.
Good business practice, but my point is they don't necessarily need this game.
They don't need this game at all.
However,
not even kind of.
It looks like they're trying to keep it alive and in the black with any type of monetization that they can. So it's possible that they're trying a bunch of different strategies inside this game, inside Pokemon Go, inside anything, because they're trying to figure out how they're going to monetize their IP, not only in Unite, but across many different games in many different regions of the world. Now, regions, this is the most important thing.
I agree with a lot of this coming up.
And here's the thing. Pokemon Unite is not made by a Western company or a Japanese company. Pokemon Unite is developed by a Chinese company. And I think people really need to understand what Pokemon is doing, positioning themselves here. I could be totally wrong, but I really think on this point, I'm 1,000,000% right. Even maybe 2,000,000,000%.
And I do too.
So Pokemon Unite paired up with a Chinese developer known for making MOBA games, known for making games that
Arena
are
of Valor
on mobile and in many other forms, PC and things like that. They also made one on the Switch. So they partnered up with this company. The big thought here is they are going to work with a big Chinese company, and they are going to get a foothold in China, get their video games approved in China, and then take their company from making $1 billion, $2 billion a year or whatever to $5 billion a year, because they have multiple Pokemon games churning out money in the largest market in the entire world.
All right, I completely agree with this. Sorry, that was annoying. I completely agree with this. I definitely do think that their goal with all of this was to position and posture for China. Again, though, and I'm in a weird position saying this, I don't think I care. Like that has no effect on me at all. Now, it could have an effect on the game long term, but in the interim, like in the here and now, the game is struggling, and financially, the game's never struggling. There's no such thing as Pokemon Unite struggling financially, even if the game was losing money and literally lighting money on fire, because Pokemon Company has so much money it doesn't matter. But if this is all a giant strategy to get in the Chinese market, that could be really, really good for the future of the game, but could also just be a giant flop for the game, because if they never get into the market, if they never get into the Chinese market, they may be upping the monetization now because they're trying to account for the projections that they maybe thought that they had, because they maybe thought they were going to break into the Chinese market. If you haven't done any research, go look into kind of like the regulations and the Chinese government kind of like working on their gaming problem. And I can't speak much past that, right? Like, I don't know anything about what's going on in China, and neither do we, and neither does, you know what I mean? We don't know what's going on in regards to Pokemon Unite. But what I do know is that you have an outcry of players that aren't in China that are unhappy, and you have a lot of players that are happy, and that's cool. But I think that the concerns are valid, and like I said, my biggest thing is that I've just started to notice the big perceptual shift around the game, and that to me is when you know that a game is not doing well, whenever it's not just the one fat blue-haired guy that's talking about it anymore, right?
Coincidence that Disney edits their movies so that they can be released in China. They don't just do it for fun. They do it because they want their movies in the biggest market in the entire world, the most important market in the world. It's not wherever you live, unless you live in China right now and I'm talking to you, but you get what I'm saying? They want to get big in this market. If this game can be successful and it can be approved to be released in China, that means other things in the Pokemon IP world could be released over there. This is huge for Pokemon. They want to be a part of this. Not only is Pokemon Unite their first foray into a MOBA, not only is it kind of their first foray into a more proper sort of team-based esports situation, which, by the way, they're very interested in figuring out. But this is kind of their way of trying to figure out if they can become a brand that wins in the biggest market out there, a market where your products need to be approved, not just by you saying, hey, I'm releasing a game in China.
So I agree with this, and this is what I think is the weird big question mark about all of this. If they have enough money, infinite money, to run this game forever, then maybe they're waiting out the Chinese government before they start going crazy with the game. But I don't really get that. Like, I don't really get the sentiment of like, oh, well, maybe the game is like not dying because they're waiting to get into the Chinese market, and that's when they break through and they get a lot of their IPs and stuff there. And again, like, I don't care. I don't care about any of that. I want a good game that feels rewarding to play, that has developers that communicate with us, that give us what we want. And that is the thing. That's what's at stake here. We have a game that have dead quiet developers that do not communicate with us, that do not implement player feedback, at least in a timely fashion, that... Like, the game is bad. I don't care if they're in China. I don't care if they have the Chinese market. The game, as it sits now, is a bad game with amazing gameplay, an amazing character release schedule, an amazing art, an amazing character design. Everything else is bad. Monetization is bad. The gameplay loop is not in terms of actual gameplay, but the gameplay loop in terms of systems is bad. The communication from the developers is bad. Like, everything surrounding the game, except for like those 4 core things, is terrible. And so, yeah, sure, maybe they're waiting out the Chinese government, and yeah, sure, maybe they'll get in the Chinese market in like 4 years from now. Like, the game will just blow up because they start like cranking out amazing updates and stuff. But I don't care about that, because what I care about is how I feel and how we feel as a player base playing the game right now. And it's miserable. It's not fun, at least for me. And you know, if you disagree with that, I totally understand. It's your prerogative. But there's a lot of people that don't disagree with that. There's a lot of people that do agree with that, and that's what I'm talking about when it comes to, is the game dying? Perceptionally, is the game dying for you? Feel free to answer the question.
No, you aren't. That's not how this works. I think this relationship between Timmy Tencent and Pokemon is the most important thing about Pokemon Unite. And maybe Pokemon Unite,
it's one of the least important things for me
right now. Maybe Pokemon
I just
Unite
don't care.
is bleeding money right now. But I think the most important thing is they keep this game around, they keep this healthy, they keep this partnership healthy, and they can get their games into China.
So Spraggle said they keep the game around, they keep it healthy. I guess my position is that I think the game is terribly unhealthy right now. I think that we are seeing more and more people unhappy with the game and probably leaving the game or considering leaving the game. And to me, that doesn't feel healthy. Whether they eventually break into the Chinese market or not, sure, maybe they don't care about the Western market at all. Maybe they just released in the Western market because it was easy to do so and it's convenient. But who knows? This could be a massive hit in China in 5 years, and there could be like no Western audience at all. I don't know. I have no idea. And I will say, I don't know what they're planning. I don't get it. I don't understand. All I know is that the game isn't good and the game isn't fun, and that sucks. That's what you want from a game. So
they could literally shut down Pokemon Unite tomorrow if it's not working out. It's totally possible. We could literally just see something saying Pokemon Unite shutting down in a week, Sableye the last thing, no more Hollowware, thank you all for playing, Scarlet and Violet are coming very soon. That could totally happen.
It could. Unlikely, but totally possible.
Hang around for 10 freaking years based on having an okay player base and them continuing to release content and continuing their relationship and their partnership. You absolutely could. So
on the note of like the game could be around for 10 years, that's absolutely true. Again, they have infinite money basically, so the game could absolutely be around and be playable for 10 years, but the question is it a good game throughout that time period? So when I say the game is dying, I don't necessarily mean that it's coming to an inevitable end where you can't log on and play it. I'm saying that the game is like not doing well perpetually and has continued to do that and has continued to get worse and worse and worse now with the monetization gem locking practice that they're doing now. So yeah, the game could be around for 10 years. It might just be incredibly niche with like, you know, a player base of like, I don't know, 20,000 people globally or per region, and the gameplay experience could be exactly the same, where ranked is just terrible and it's just, you know, it's just whales playing the game, and you know the only people that engage with it are people that are willing to pay for the early releases, or you know, yeah, that game could exist, absolutely. So in that sense, sure, the game's not dead or wouldn't be dead. But I would say to the larger player base or to the larger populace of people that would rather enjoy a game in a much more enjoyable way, that doesn't sound very alive to me either.
When you hear people talk about the game dying, just recognize that they might be talking about some very valid concerns within the game, but we have no idea what's going on with Pokemon Unite. I really think that my theory about what this game is and what this game means to Pokemon, what this game means to Tencent, is very, very clear. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, but moreover, I think I needed to make this video because there is a lot of negativity around this game sometimes, and some of it I think is warranted, and at other times I'm thinking, guys, let's just play this game a little bit and enjoy it, because
I can't. I don't. You know, there is a lot of negativity around the game, and I think I want to ask you if you think it all comes from me, because I think that the answer is no. And if it does, maybe I'm locked inside my own echo chamber, right? Maybe I'm locked inside my own experience, my own anecdote, and I'm, you know, my head's bigger than I realize. But there's a lot of negativity around the game because people are feeling a lot of negative feelings about the game. And the reason why I can't just sit back and enjoy the game is because the game is terribly unenjoyable. And the reason why we're talking about it, and not, I don't say me, the reason why we're talking about it is because it's happening. We're watching the developers not communicate with us. We're watching them take 2 months to nerf Mime and Mew. We're watching them not make meaningful changes to ranked. We're watching them not implement a grind for non-5-stack players. We're watching them remove hollowware from rewards from ranked. We're watching them increase their monetization and their greedy practices. This is not things that are anecdotally happening. These are things that we are watching happen and we are responding to. I'm simply just reacting to the experience that I'm given and sharing my take. I'm not generating negativity. I'm not generating other people's feelings about the game. I may be amplifying it. I may be persuading some people. Sure, I think there's a little bit of influence in terms of being an influencer or a content creator. But there's negativity because the game has negative shit going on, and that's how we feel. Again, feel free to comment on that.
Because one day it won't be around, and it's a pretty dang good video game, and I don't want us to excuse things that we don't like about it, but at the same time, we don't have any information, and frankly, they're not looking to us to figure out how they're going to fix their game. I think whenever
he says, frankly, we don't have any information, I think when it comes to like player numbers and finances and what they're planning, that's all true. But the information I have is how I feel and how other people tell me they feel. And again, I have information to see the response from the player base on social media. And that's not the entire player base. I get that. I absolutely get that. I don't think a handful of tweets, pro players, myself, you guys in the comments on my channel, I don't think we account for the entire player base. I absolutely don't believe that. But we account for some of the player base, and our opinions should be somewhat valid, and they should be somewhat considered. And the feedback that spans back over 12 months should be somewhat considered. So no, I don't have data to prove the game is dying. But what I have is you, and I have my own opinions, and I have the opinions of others, other content creators, World Championship player Jungle Book, you know, top 4 in a regional player Sanji, etc., etc. We're not manifesting negativity and hate for the game. The game is giving us a negative experience, and we're responding to it.
I have a pretty good idea as to what they're going to do in Pokemon Unite. I hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope I can edit this and make it snappy enough where it's not just boring hearing me talk about this for too long. All right. Love you. Bye. Oh, did I yeehaw? Yeehaw.
Yeah, I love Jake. I appreciate that he can be the voice of reason, especially bringing up the topics between the development and the countries and the relationships, because I think all of that is incredibly valid. I just think as a North American player, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care if they get into the Chinese market. I don't care what money they're making. I don't care what it costs to... Oh, I forgot to tie that point in. I don't care what it costs to hire social media managers for every single country. I don't give a shit. I want to play a game that feels fun to play, that feels like the developers respect me, or I'm going to spend my time on something else. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Are you going to continue to give this game your time? When is enough for you? Because again, it's not like these issues don't exist. It's just a matter of, are you willing to deal with it? The game's dying. That's my thoughts. All right, friends. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe for future Pokemon Unite content. As always, be sure to comment below. Tell someone you love them. And I'll see you on the next video.